And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess, here back with another AFL Round review. We are through round 21, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting closer and closer to the end of the home and away season. So, joining me today, a very familiar face on the podcast, his second time helping me out this particular year, my co-coach with the Des Moines Roosters, Mr. Ben Markham. Ben, great to see you again, sir.
Happy to be here.
Oh, it's always great having you on. You and I talk so much footy. I thought, I don't know what, let's put it in front of some microphones and have some fun. So we are through round 21. Round 21 has come, it has gone, it has given us quite the plethora of results, whether it's close games, whether it's not so close games, whether it's after the siren, whether it's kicking a behind to win a game, a little bit of everything. Just really quickly, your thoughts on this crazy round 21.
Yeah, my overarching thoughts on the round as it in total are my big takeaway, I should say, would be individual and team discipline and finding your form. Specifically watching Hawthorn essentially fall apart in the fourth quarter, and similarly watching Geelong with a nail biter towards the end to finish it with just seconds left to play. It felt like um, some key takeaways are just like some fundamental things, just individual accountability and doing some of the fundamentals right, being in position, tracking back, the discipline even when you're tired, um, can make all the difference in a win or loss. And at this point of the season, as we're really getting down to the sharp end of it, uh, those small things that you learn, like your first couple of years of football, um, if you fail to do them, that can be the issue. So
Definitely.
that would, yeah. So my big thing is just like Geelong won by a point, and one of Cameron's goals was literally just squeaked over the line off his off foot. If North's full forward had just stayed on the goal line as opposed to tracking with his man, or the entire, if Adelaide had just tracked with his man, the whole thing would have been different. So it just changes the whole complexion of the game. Just standing on the line like you're taught to do your first year playing fullback. It's just a completely different outcome for one small decision to come off the line and stay with a man when you think he might have an easy kick. So things like that can change the outcome of the game. And honestly, it changes the complexion of a season. That's a win for Geelong that they desperately needed, that Adelaide could have pulled away. I mean, they won by 5 points. If you stop the goal or even tap it for a behind, the outcomes could be completely different. So
Yeah. Everything is all timing and when it happens for sure. So let's jump right into it. Friday night footy sees a smashing as the Western Bulldogs continue to be in fuego as they beat the Melbourne Demons 110-59. I mean, the D's jumped the doggies jumped the D's. Too many D's and too many words coming together there, coach. Just absolutely ran over the D's. There's just nothing much the demons could do, and the doggies looking absolutely fantastic. So close to the so close to the finals.
yeah, it's another one of those things. Again, to the earlier point, is finding the form. Sometimes it can be hard to find, and sometimes it can be so easy to lose. And that's game by game and player by player. And just the Bulldogs have found form right when you're hoping to kind of really find form. And unfortunately for Melbourne, it's just looking like they've lost it. Now they have some key folks out, specifically Petraka. That's a really big out, and I know poor Ali really hasn't been able to find his form essentially all season. I have every confidence he'll get it right. We know the type of player that he is, and this is just unfortunately, it feels like a lost season, and all eyes are on him in the biggest moments right now. Max gone, hell of a ruckman, but you can't do it by yourself. And without his typical midfield, Viney just one person can't make the whole thing run. So it's unfortunate to see where Melbourne is at the moment. Heck of a win for the Western Bulldogs, and they found form at the right time. Let's see if they can full speed ahead through the remainder of the season and into finals.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this Doggies team grow again. They've caught some teams at just the right times. It'll be fascinating to see how they go for sure. And Jamara Ugle-Hagen's streak of four goals comes to an end, but still an impressive performance by that young man. We jump out where the Gold Coast Suns' woes of the road continue as the West Coast Eagles get a giant 10-point win over the Suns, 97-87. And I mean, it's always great to see that little bump that a caretaker coach, shall we say, gets. But I almost look at Dimma Hardwick and go, this was set up on a platter, for the best chance for you to get a win on the road, and your team still finds a way to trip and fall face first in its best opportunity to get a win on the road.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, is it in the player? Is it a coaching thing or is it a player thing? Like you talk about like trying to have the same rituals before a game. A lot of players kind of try to do exactly the same thing a lot of times. And I'm just wondering if the ritual is we lose on the road or we fail to find form on the road. What a stark contrast playing at home to playing on the road for the Gold Coast Suns. Just I mean, it feels to me, especially against a team that fired their coach in the season. If you can't find a win on the road there, how can you expect to win a finals having to play at the MCG? Like, I think that to me that's all the demonstration we need, and that's got to be on the player's mind. It's just unfortunate because it's like a Jekyll and Hyde situation. They play so well at home, and then they go on the road against a team with essentially no form and a gun rookie midfielder, and you can't even get it done there. It's just rough. It was rough.
Yeah, it was again West Coast for it is a cauldron over in Optus Stadium. The West Coast Eagles fans, no matter what their record is, they show up, and this is a team. This is a young Eagles side that when they get a little bit of confidence and being at home, when they get the crowd behind them, it can make them do some extra magical things. I mean, we all saw Harley Reid do what he did against the Melbourne Demons earlier this year. This is the West Coast team, and again, I'm happy for them. They got the win. They got a little bit of the voodoo off of the team now, finally getting a win for the caretaker coach. But again, it's very nice for the win, but my eyes are purely on what the heck is wrong with Gold Coast again. I know this is a young side, but we kept hearing it this whole time is we want to make finals, we want to make finals. You fired Stewie Dew, and what really have you progressed in? What really has changed since Dimma has stepped in? Like, I know it's the first season. Dimma is still going to take some time, but unfortunately, I look at it and I go, there was no bounce that I think everybody expected Dimma to do to this team. This is the same exact results. The only difference is maybe you're having stronger performances at home, but the road performances have been abysmal at times this year. They've lost some games they shouldn't have. This should have been a win. If you look at the team that the Gold Coast put on the floor on the field versus the team that West Coast put on the field, this should be a win for the Suns. So it is rather disappointing that again, I feel like will Demma make a change? I hope so. I'm crossing my fingers that maybe the Suns can get out of whatever it is that they're in. But I look at the record and I go, what's so much better that you had to fire Stewie Do? And that's my biggest question for the Gold Coast Suns and the club as a whole, because
And
there hasn't really been much of a change. There hasn't been this bump that we thought we would get.
and one more remark, just kind of really quick about that change and kind of with the same record. When you are one of these non-Victorian clubs, you're like just as a club culture, you're gonna have to find a way to win away. Yeah, like, it's just a fact of life with being one of those clubs. You don't have the benefit of being a Victorian club. You will have to travel, and if you want finals play, you're gonna have to win. And while we do definitely have a narrative now, and it's almost in a way, you don't want to poke fun too much. Like this, the Gold Coast has their following and their fans. It's pretty clear to see they're not winning on the road. They're not even beating the team they should beat, like the West Coast Eagles. Dimmo was brought in, and I correct me if I'm wrong. His big thing is standards and setting standards, and what's the standard, and it's kind of what his mantra was at Richmond as well. And what's the standard for when you can't when you drop every potential road game? Like what
Mhm.
standard are you setting? What changes week to week between this loss and their last away loss? What was the change?
Mhm.
So I'm curious how he as a coach will handle that with someone who is so big on standards.
Mhm.
Just yeah,
No, I'm 100% with you on that one. It's fascinating. Like I said, we'll keep an eye on it again. It's not like Timmer's on the fly, not like Dimma is on the hot seat. It's not like he's going anywhere, but it just
first year. Yeah.
I'm one of those that I'm still to this day think that Stewie Doo got a bad rap. He was doing a lot of things. It was just that I think the club just saw the numbers in front of the draft picks and they thought that success just comes and it just doesn't. It's not that simple. So we'll jump down to Marvel Stadium as North Melbourne get back on the win column as they knock off the lonely Richmond Tigers 90-77. And I gotta say this again. I feel bad for Adam Uze because he is in an absolutely no-win situation right now because all of the injuries, all of the controversy after this team is kind of basically imploded after all of its success. And really, what is he going to do if he wins? Then the fan base that's already kind of left the
Acclimated
club.
to winning.
Exactly. But it's like they're losing. So it's like, and everybody's trying to blame him. And it's like, I don't blame him. It's just an ugly season where everything that could go wrong for the Richmond Tigers has. But I also want to rewind and go back. I want to give credit again to North because North are continuing to fight. People could say you could roll over, that there's no way you're making finals, but this is a team that you could see the exuberance. LDU is playing fantastic. He's starting to get plaudits to the point where people are starting to talk about him potentially being all Australian. Christian Ziri this year has really got a solid claim to be in that running for the Rock for all Australian this season in the AFL. So, and Charlie Combin and Aiden Core have played really well on the backside for them. Nick Larkey again for as little um,
You're
um,
burying the
entry.
lead. Sheasel. Sheasel.
I
Woo.
know, but I gotta give I gotta give LDU just a little bit more. I mean, this was a fantastic by that absolutely amazing young man. 3 goals in this game. He was absolutely BOG in my personal opinion in this game again. This is a north side. There's a lot of positive momentum for this North Melbourne team and a Richmond team that honestly this is a lost cause season. And I know I'm not sure if you've seen this, but news has just dropped not even an hour before we started recording that the great man, Dusty Martin, is officially retiring effective immediately. So he is done. Dusty Martin has announced his retirement. He won't be going to the Gold Coast, which I know some Gold Coast fans are like, shucks, darn, crud, all those things that you can't say, all those things that you can say because you can't say other things on a podcast. But North, great things. Richmond, again, just a lost season, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm with you. The way I look at it is the result is about truthfully what I expected for good or for ill. And I don't know if Richmond fans want to hear it or not. You have one team about to start their rebuilding process and another team kind of hopefully emerging from it. I know North perpetually seems to be kind of in a rebuilding phase, at least for the 10 years I've been following footy. Um, but they're looking a lot better if they can hold on to some of this talent that they have. And I know it's always kind of been an issue, but this is kind of you just start to see the murmurs and the tremors, and you start to see some success building. And on the other side, you had such a run, such a glorious run, and then it just sports is so cruel. It can go wrong so quickly, both in a game, in a season, and in a coaching tenure. You just turn the corner, all of a sudden you got a bunch of 33, 34, 35 year olds, and just the pace slows down and nothing's clicking. And yeah, one or two trades and it's what you got. And then on top of that, you just stack injuries. Is it injuries? Is it trades? Is it not a rebuild? It feels to me like it's kind of like the end rather than, but, but I'm just a Yank. What do I know? So congratulations to North. Um, Hard fought, well earned, way to not roll over, way to try to build that momentum and get some positivity as we careen towards the end of the season. And good things to build on for next year.
Definitely. I 100% agree with you on that one. So we will jump over to the next game, which sees an absolute classic as your beloved Geelong Cats survive a scare at GMHBA Stadium by the Crows, only getting a win by 90-85. And I know you sat down and watched every single minute of this, sir, with the Geelong Cats man that you are. Your thoughts on this one? I mean, Cats get a win, but man, did the Crows put a scare into the hoops for most of this game.
Yeah, I feel that's kind of been Geelong's season, truthfully. Like this is one of those games where it's almost like your culture gets you there more so than maybe that necessarily the talent on the field. And Geelong's just they're comfortable with who they are and what they do, and the grit and determination just I think that's what got them over the line. It's just one of those they're old hand. Like they're just they're seasoned, and granted they have a lot of youth coming through. They really do, but as a culture, it's just paramount of just stability, play within yourself, play within your role. The game will come to you, and it worked out. It just did. I mean, they're also yeah. It's just great win by Geelong. I think it's. I was going into the game thinking this was the gimme. I was almost caught as a fan looking ahead to next week. What are they going to do at Frio? And then Adelaide just said, "Hang on a second, we get paid to play this game too." And boy,
Mhm.
did they show it. A lot of heart, a lot of gumption. Whether you're a fan of Adelaide, whether you're a fan of Geelong, or whether if you're just a fan of footy, just seeing the heart that both teams played with and the desperation to win the game, it was a. I feel from the games I watched, it to me this was the game of the week. Maybe not the exact nail biter, but that we have later down the road. But what a gritty, hard fought, well matched game.
hmm Yep, definitely for sure on that one. We jump to it. Two games at the same time. Let's get the ugly one out of the way. I don't want to talk about this, but I'm gonna have to. As Port Adelaide hand a holy crap size whooping on the Sydney Swans, 148-36. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 112-point win by the Power. And as I told my co-host earlier in a phone call today, when he asked what the heck happened, and I break it down as this: everything that could go right for the Swans did, or everything that could go right for Port did. Everything that could go wrong for the Swans did. Literally, it was a perfect storm. Port was absolutely magnificent. Their ball movement was absolutely pinpoint. Their goal kicking, fantastic. Probably could have been even more if they would have kicked straight, but a few strayed behinds probably made this margin a little bit more flattering to the Sydney Swans. And plain and simply, the Swans were like a wet noodle. They were limp and they were just not there. It's just the simple way to say it. For those of you that listen to the podcast that know that I get up and I watch every game, yes, I did get up. Yes, I did stay for the end of the game. Yes, I must be a glutton for punishment because I sat through that. So I'm not even gonna lie on this one. It's I don't know what to say. I agree with Horst Longmire that literally there are no words that are going to come out of my mouth that are going to explain what happened. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not one of those people that cusses, screams, and get angry and uses this to ruin my weekend. I don't. I'm disappointed. Is it frustrating? Absolutely, as a fan. But I also know that as frustrated and as upset as I am, trust me, those players are just as gutted as any of us fans. And trust me, they're going to hear it even more from the coaching staff in review. I would love to be a fly on the wall for Horse absolutely tearing the paint off the wall during the review of this particular game. I'm like this, Ben. I mean, this, like I said, this was just, it was a shit show and a half. Port just too good. Sydney absolutely putrid. And that's me being nice.
Yeah, gonna be honest, I texted you when I saw the score and was thinking of tuning in, but after just got talking with you, and I thought, you know what? If the Swans aren't going to show up, why should I show up? And so I kind of let this
Very
one
true.
go. I guess the bigger discussion is like what a tale again. It's to the finding form and losing form. And if you compare the first 15 weeks to where we sit right now and the most recent sample size of the Swans, and it's like, is it really so simple as the teams have figured it out and they're just going to play ball control and just stop the Swans from doing what the Swans want to do? And if it is that simple, you got to be able to go into the film room and adapt. And I mean, it's a result that is shocking, and it's gonna. I just feel like there has to be a charge to the leadership, whether that be Parker or whatever that leadership group is for the Swans. At some point, you just got to put your rally caps on, and even if you got a lunch pail it right, you would think in the professional setting you got to see more than that. And yeah, sometimes you just cop it. Every team does, but to me, the disparity of the score speaks more to leadership and failure to hone it in and just buckle down than anything. But on the other hand, sometimes some days it's just not your day, and that's a real thing too. But the score was shocking. I wish I had more to comment on it. I didn't watch the game for the sake of Sydney and the enthusiasm of the crowds and the fan base. I hope they find out what this is. I hope it sticks out like a sore thumb at film review, and I hope they get back on the track and figure it out. So we'll see what happens, but ooh, that's an ugly one.
Yeah, definitely for sure. It was insane sitting down and watching that game for sure. Oh boy, it was. I do not. I sat there for so long after that game was over, and I turned it off, and I just went, because I didn't know what to say. Like there were no words for me to say on that one. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna take the pain and I'm gonna throw it out and move on
yeah,
to
you got to goldfish it.
an absolute classic at the MCG as the old rivals Collingwood and Carlton lock horns and the Pies celebrate Pendle's 400th game, edging out their rivals by 3, 84-81, an absolute classic game. But the Pies do take a little bit of a hit as Jordan DeGoey gets injured and unfortunately will be done for the season. And on the opposite side of that, on the good marker, is they end Charlie Curno's consecutive game streak with a goal. The Pies may be starting to find form. Should the comp be worried, the Pies are starting to find it and could potentially slip into the finals.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, I watched the first half of this game, and it's just I see I see I would be so upset if I was Crippa and just watching the blood and the sweat and the effort, and the club has been on that man's shoulders for so long. And then the Carlton goes out and they get Mackay and Kerno's there, and you have but essentially the two towers that are supposed to be this most feared duo, and they're not. They're not there. It's just not there. And I don't know if it's an effort, if it's a structure. It's just hard to see someone fight, gnash their teeth and just do it. And if Cripps can't get a championship, I'm not even a Carlton man. I'm a Geelong man, but he has borne the weight of that club and the expectations and the tradition for so long. And it's just like there's so many times during that game where you're just like, is this the only champion who's fighting? Like, is this it? It's just it's so frustrating when you see so many passengers. And I think part of that's calling out to like Walsh, who, I mean, to be fair to Walsh, as a Warrior, as an AFL player, missing a vertebrae and coming back and finding a way to play at the highest level and the highest standard of play, impressive in its own right. But comparatively, when you're just looking, it's Paddy Cripps' team, and he's the like it just feels like he's the effort man. So that's
Mhm.
it, it, it it can't all in this transfers to the USAFL. It is never on the onus of one player. It takes a team to win. And I'm not saying like every team will have some passengers, at least in the USAFL. There's going to be some passengers and then some pilots. That's fair, but it can't all be. You can't all watch as this one guy is just on another level, just doing it, and then yeah. So Collingwood won it fair and square, but Carlton's got to find a way to light a fire, and especially under those big boys up top. It's just you're paying them, you brought them in, you need to see returns for it. So that's that. Collingwood had the better day, I suppose, but Carlton's got to find some form and fast.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that one. So it'll be fascinating to keep an eye on how that one goes for sure. We
Are you,
jump down to it to
just
another.
real quick, one last point. Where are you with me that it would be like super disappointing if Cripps doesn't get a grand final with Carlton? Like if
I
this window just passes them by, like
I really get that. I really get that. Like, and I think for me, like you see all these great stories, almost these Cinderella stories of somebody playing for a long period of time in a club that just doesn't get it done, and then they finally get there and they get their championship, or they at least get to a finals game before they retire. And I'm like, I love those stories, but I'm not going to say it's disappointing because the road is littered with tons of really good players that have never won a title, that have never won a championship. Is it sad? Absolutely. I will say that. It is absolutely sad when a great player like a Patrick Cripps may never see a grand final. It could happen. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I honestly think Carlton will get there, that their team is built really well. I think they're okay. The issue will be is that can they pull their bootstraps up and get their heads out of a body cavity we shouldn't be saying on a podcast. They like Sydney have absolutely stubbed their toe on the 5 yard line and fallen face first with the goal line and nobody in front of you, to use a gridiron term. So I mean it literally is one of those where I look at it and I go, do I want him to? Yes. Will he? Again, we'll have to see. Again, Carlton unfortunately has done this to us. Now they had that outstanding run last year and fell just a little bit short to the Brisbane Lions. So it's not like he hasn't seen some final success. He has last year. Is it sustained? We'll have to see. But it's going to be very, very interesting to keep an eye on it because there's still 3 rounds left. And if Carlton can find some form, they're a dangerous, dangerous team with that two-headed monster up forward for them.
yeah, yeah.
So, all righty, let's jump down to it and jump over to Manuka Oval in the capital of Canberra in Australia as the Giants survive a scare from the inform Hawthorn Hawks, and the Giants have to do it after the siren. I mean, it just cannot get any better than that when you kick a goal with almost no time left. Tom Green, take a bow, young man, as you get it done. But the Hawks again, if you're a Hawthorne supporter, you're going, as much as it sucks to lose, it just shows how good you are. You pushed a team that a lot of people there for a while were saying they're a potential top 4 team, they're a potential grand finalist, they're a potential flag contender. And this Hawks team, this young Hawks team that went 0-5 to start the season, just took them all the way to the wire. I am not counting this Hawks team out. If they get into the finals, they could be scary. But plaudits to GWS because you led at the start of the game and you led when it matters the most, when the final siren went off.
Yeah, 100% with you. I think this also speaks to just the youth and having to find yourself being it's honestly in some ways a similar story to Sydney, but on a much more closer scale. And it's just learning to deal with success and learning how to deal with failures. And that's both over the course of a season and within the microcosm of kind of just one game. And it's just when things start to turn and things aren't going great, and you like they're riding high through like the third quarter, I believe. And then it just kind of falls apart. And it's like it's not a 3 quarter game. And nothing when you're playing professional ball, like a lot of these results indicate nothing is handed to you at this level. The other guys are getting paid too. You
Hmm.
got to show up for 4 quarters and you got to finish the job. And you can't just let your form dip and you can't just get on your skis and just coast through it and just be a passenger. Like takes active, dedicated play and grit through that fourth quarter to win it. So congrats to GWS and dealing with with the throes of the season and the throes of the game and staying in the mix. Hawthorne's still in there, but I think this is a great thing for a young team to go through and say like this is a winnable game. Like it's a completely winnable game. It's 2 points and a win that Hawthorne really kind of really needed. I guess both teams needed it, but um, yeah, it's a good lesson to learn for a youthful group to have a game like that. I think.
Definitely, for sure. And again, it's something Sam Mitchell, I think, will be able to use to help his team get better. Because again, this is a Hawks team. There's a ton of young talent. They're going to be fun to watch, but just fell a little bit short to a good experienced GWS Giants team. And then not to be outdone, the next game of the night on Sunday sees the Essendon Bombers edge out the Dockers by one. And as my co-host said in a text message, when I said this was probably the game, this is one of the game of the rounds, when he asked me what game should he watch, I said, well, I'm thinking the Essendon Fremantle one is probably the one you want to keep an eye on. With an epic comeback by the Dons, the Dockers evened it up, and the Dons find a way, kicking up behind late in the game to get a win. The Dons save their finals chances. Fremantle take a hit, probably could cost them a top two spot. What top four is still there, but the Dons get the win they really desperately needed to kind of right the proverbial plane, shall we say? Pardon the pun.
Yeah, fi finding form again, finding form in season, finding form in games, finding it at the right time. Huge deal here. Um, I honestly think this was Frio's game to lose, and they lost it. I think that they looked a little lost in the fourth, and Essendon just had that little bit more. Some amazing displays of athleticism. And here's the thing about Essendon. I think I was talking to you prior to this as well about Essendon when they are on, they can beat anybody. Like
Mhm.
literally anybody in the comp. When Essendon is on, you're like, oh, I can see that. That makes sense. They can win that. But they could lose a game by 50. And you're just like, yeah, I could see that. I can see that. There's lost their form. Like, how do you beat a team that's going as good as Frio is going this late in the season and then turn around and look at their last three losses, like the 3 weeks prior to this, and you're just like you have St. Kilda, who's kind of in a quandary right now. They're trying to find themselves, and it's so many of the losses the last couple weeks are just games that are really what you would think are kind of against the gimme clubs of the league, and you can't get it done. And then you come to a top four Frio, and you're thinking, oh, this is the end for Essendon. And then they turn around and pull something like this out, and you're just like, if you had half this grit the last 2 weeks, you'd have won by 50 against the last two opponents. It's just it's remarkable to me. I mean it's almost like they're playing to the level of the competition, and more than half the time they're losing playing at the level of the competition. It's the most frustrating thing, the ups and downs. I feel bad for the Essendon. I'm glad they got the win, but what an emotional ride this year has been to be an Essendon fan.
Mhm.
Absolutely a crackerjack.
Yeah, definitely. I'm 100% with you on that one. It's been crazy being an Essendon supporter because super high to start the season, kind of had the dull. What a comeback. It's going to be crazy watching how they progress as this season goes, as this end of the season progresses to the end of the season. And then kind of the hold my beer, absolutely opposite of the previous one, is the Brisbane Lions come down to Marvel Stadium and also, just like Port Adelaide, put a whooping on the St. Kilda Saints by 85, 124, 39. And I mean, this Brisbane Lions team, they look like they are absolutely cherry ripe at the perfect time of year when you're getting great performances from Zach Bailey, from all of their young guns. It is fantastic to see. Brisbane maybe finally starting to live up to what many people thought was a potential premiership favorite going into the season.
In the US, we call this a stat game where you're just, hey, Lockie, you're going for that Brownlow. Let's get you some possessions, mate. Let's
Hmm.
get you some goals. Let's get it's an insulting term in the US, but we call it a stat game. And it's you gotta feel bad for St. Kilda. It feels like in some ways they're another one of those North Melbourne type clubs. They're just perennial punching bags. And you do feel for them, but I mean, this is what you get when you have a top four team stacked up against kind of a largely considered probably a bottom four club. And it's just there's the result. That it makes sense. Like
Hmm.
it's tough. And it's got to be tough to be a St. Kilda fan and get through it. Hopefully better times ahead. Probably not this season. They got to figure some things out. But yeah, it's a lunch pail game. It's on the schedule. You got to play it, but it's going to be an ugly day.
Hmm.
So
Definitely, for sure. I agree with you on that one. So it's those games, they're hard to watch sometimes. They really are because you just know that everybody on that other side of the ground is like, ooh, this is the perfect shot for me to absolutely run it up. Gonna be interesting. That is all nine games talked about, all nine games discussed. We go to the burning questions section of the podcast. Some of the things that I've been thinking about it the last couple of days. We'll go right to it then. Melbourne are 2 games out with 3 games to play. Is there any way the D's still make finals, or should we put the proverbial line through the D's chances this season?
you're not. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. I do feel it's kind of one of those burning questions where there's I don't know. Realistically speaking, there's probably a top four, maybe a top five that could realistically win. But by the same token, if you were asking me coming into this weekend, Essendon versus Frio, I'm taking Frio. You're asking me Port versus Sydney. No way, I'm taking Sydney. You're talking Collingwood versus Carlton. Oh, Carlton's definitely in form. That's a top four team. Collingwood's not even in the top eight. Collingwood turns it on. It's why we play the games, right? And just why we play the game. It doesn't matter who the other team is. You're still a professional. You're still getting paid. Until you're mathematically eliminated, you're in. Now, I do think if they do squeak in, the odds are they're not going to have a lot of tipping going Melbourne's way if they do make the eight. But by the same token, if you're in, anything can happen. That's the magic of finals. That's why we watch it. That's why we love this game. So I'm not willing to stick a fork in anybody. I don't think anybody's done who can make it. Anybody can make a run. Anybody who's top four essentially feels like they could lose it. It's so tight, but that's the glory of AFL is that some of these teams are so close. There's the margins are so tiny. Look at these scores. Like they're literally one goal. Like how many one goal games do we have this week? Less than 6 points, right? One, two, three, four. Is that five? Like four, it looks like four. Yeah, four one goal games. That's 8 teams living or dying by less than a goal, and the impacts and the ripples through the ladder. Just my team, Geelong, sixth on the ladder only by percentage, and it's just like holy smokes,
Mhm.
what a thing. To answer your question, broadly speaking, the broad strokes do can the D's inch in, with and find some form and get it done? Like, sure they can. Um, would I tip them to go very far and make a run and push? Not really, but you never know. I mean, 8 seeds have won before. That's why there's an 8 seed. So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, it'll definitely be for sure. I'm very fascinated to see how it goes. With the D's, I don't know. I kind of feel like that Gon's ankle is still, I don't think it's still 100%. I agree. I think Petraka's injury, as much as they've tried to fix it with Trent Rivers, has just never really been fixed. Clayton Oliver has completely been off form. I kind of think if I'm Coach Goodwin, I almost don't mind not making finals because you get some of these boys some rest, you get some recovery into them, and you get to address what's not been going right this season. And can you find a way to maybe bring in another forward option to give them some other things? Because Bailey Fritch can only do so much. Keziah Pickett can only do so much because they still don't have a full forward. They really have not been able to find one that's going to work. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. We'll go to it. I put this up just because I thought I'm gonna kick them when them down a little bit, but I gotta ask, as the Swans in danger of falling out of the top four in their current form?
In their current form? Oh yeah. After a wall, 36 to 1, I don't care who you're playing. 148 to 36, home or away, excuse all you want, injuries all you want, backroom content, who should come in, who should come out. Is Mills 100%? Is he ready to go? Where's part? Papley's out. All the excuse 148 to 36, pro to pro. Boy, that's current form. Yeah, they could drop the top four. Can they turn it around and show that those first 15 weeks and just over the top some of this competition? They could do that too. It's all of it. Like, that's the glory of footy. Find your form, lose your form. Where is it, on an individual level, on a team level, on a season level? That's the drama of the sport that we love so much. But the current form, gross. Gross enough. I didn't even tune in I saw the score and I said, I don't need to see that form. I don't want to see
Mhm.
that form. Oh, I could go in the backyard and show you that form with my crippled kick.
You're honest. That's the one thing I got to give you, sir. You are very, very honest when it comes to it. And I appreciate that for sure. So,
Yeah.
all
But
right.
don't forget the first 15 weeks was a real thing too, right? It's not like all hope is lost and it's gone,
I
right? Like, the
if
first 15 weeks happened.
if I'm being honest with you, I still think they make top four just because of how well they did at the start of the season. They gave themselves such a buffer. I don't think they're going to fall out of the four because I think they'll at least get at least one, if not two wins in this final three. I don't know why, but I just kind of feel like that they've hit the roughest part of the patch and that maybe we're going to start seeing the uptick. Collingwood isn't easy this Friday night, but it is at the SCG. And for some weird reason, Collingwood doesn't play at the SCG as well as some other teams. So that gives you an opportunity. You still have the Crows still at home, and you have a Friday night footy matchup with Essendon down at Marvel Stadium. So it's not like you have three games against the Brisbane Lions, Fremantle Dockers at Optus Stadium, and the Western Bulldogs again. So it's not like your last three games are absolutely unwinnable. You can win all three games and you still have a 2 point buffer between you and second place. You've got like a 6 point buffer, if not 8 point buffer between you and fourth place. So I look at it like this. I still think they'll be top four unless they drop all three games. And even if they drop all three games, they're still going to play finals. They're already in. The $1 million question will be is it first, is it second, is it third, is it fourth, is it fifth, is it sixth? Is most likely where you're going to end up. You're either going to get home field advantage with the one or a two seed if you win at least one, if not two of your last games, or you maybe go on the road. You maybe go on the road for that first the qualifying final, and if you lose, you get a home semifinal. So I don't think the Swans are as in horrible condition. Again, I look at the form. I completely agree with you. Five of the last six they've lost. They've looked atrocious at times, but I still am not ready to just line through them. It's over because what I saw earlier in the year, if they find it, it's scary. I know they've got injuries. Papley is a deep injury, but Papley's not going to make up for the midfield issues and the defensive issues. That's just not going to happen. Okay. Dane Rampy is the heart and soul of that defensive line. There's possibilities he could be back this next round, which I think would only give a boost to an already kind of wiltering back line with Melican getting hurt. I mean, Tom McCartan can only do so much, and Nick Blakey is not a defending defender, shall we say. So I don't know. I don't I The possibilities of them dropping out of the four are high. That just the way they're playing. But I don't think it's gonna happen, but we'll have to see. And then
Here's the
go
the
ahead.
hypothetical, the hypothetical there for me that I would just I'm just curious, right? Would you trade if let's just say that they lose that you have to trade they lose the next three uh, right off whatever spot you want, but they make the finals, but they find their form losing the next three, or like I feel like you'd have to take that over they squeak out the next three and it just looks as atrocious as the last couple weeks and they don't find the form, but just based off of grit or luck or whatever, they have some nail biters and they eke it out. You'd have to say I'll take the loss, but if they're flying high on form, you feel like you'd take that and just take the seeding hit and
Yep.
just and take the form over the seeding. Ideally, you get both, right? Ideally, they find the form, they win the next three, you're flying high, it's what you want. But if you have to take one or the other, right? It's form over seeding every time,
Hmm.
right? You take the form over the victory.
Yep. Nope. 100% with you on that one. And I think that's probably what they're going to do. So we'll have to, like I said, we'll have to see. And then we'll end on this. I know that you are a very much a Geelong man, so we'll go with this. Geelong is only percentage out of the top four with 3 games left. Can they get into the top four, or is it just a little bit too tough an ask for the Cats to get into the top four?
I've been saying it all year. From my perception of just watching them versus watching, say Sydney at their peak, Port at their peak, Geelong's floor is so high. They're like I've never been even when I think they lost three in a row earlier this season. Watched every one of them. The floor is so high, but their ceiling ain't exactly like the Sistine Chapel, right? Like they're just they're just a healthy club that can do it. Can they hit top four? I think some things have to go terribly wrong for some other clubs. I think Sydney has to not find that form that we were talking about. Um, they're a quality club. They'll get to finals. I don't know what their spot's going to be, and they'll be competitive. It's why you play finals. You play to win, and it's amazing having being able to barrack for a team that is just consistently good week in and week out. And I don't get emotionally high. I don't get emotionally low. And it's a weird thing as a fan to be like, my persona for the Cats is kind of it. I've almost adopted the team thing where I'm like, it's gonna be okay. Even keel. There's some things that are gonna work out and they can make top four. They might not. I'm not scrapping for it. I'm just like the Cats are going to play their game, and they're just going to be them. And like
Mhm.
if you beat them, you're gonna work for it. But more often than not, because of just that stability and that almost tranquility, the zen of the Cats and of their coach, like it gets you through. So yeah, I'm not losing sleep over where they end up seating. I'm just glad they kind of figured out Tom Hawkins and or yeah, Tommy Stewart, apologies. And and I'm hoping the other competition doesn't get wise to it through
Mhm.
through the final season, as that switch seems to have just been the perfect coaching move.
Yeah, definitely. I'm 100% with you on that one. So, alrighty, sir, we've got to the point of the podcast. I take over just the littlest bit, and we do my team of the week and power rankings. We start off on the team of the week in the defensive side of the field. We see at the fullback line, we see Liam Duggan of the West Coast Eagles, Hawthorns Josh Weddle, and Fremantle's Luke Ryan. On the halfback line, sees Lockie Scholl of the Adelaide Crows, Port Adelaide's Dan Houston, and Essendon's Nick Martin. On the wings, we see Liam Baker of the Richmond Tigers and Hawthorns Massimo D'Ambrosio. Perfect name for an
Best
Italian
name
restaurant
ever.
owner. I know. Ruck we see Rowan Marshall in the guts. We see Western Bulldogs Marcus Bontempelli, North Melbourne's Luke Davies Uniacke and the Western Bulldogs Adam Treloar make up the three in the guts. On the half forward line, we see Jeremy Cameron of the Geelong Cats, Port Adelaide's Mitch Georgiades, and Brisbane's Joe Danaher. In the full forward line, we see Port Adelaide's William Rioli, GWS's Jesse Hogan, and North Melbourne's Nick Larkey. On the bench, we see Dane Zorko of the Brisbane Lions. At the ruck, we see Melbourne's Max Gawn. The midfielder is Fremantle's Hayden Young, and Essendon's Jake Stringer rounds out the final forward in the Team of the Week. Really quickly, I know it's a lot of names really quickly. Thoughts on Team of the Week so far?
Powerful, powerful. What a team to field.
Uh-huh.
If ever you could. No complaints. I think that's a fine list. Fine list.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's kind of hard to mess up if you do it if you do it correctly. Again, I know there's some names sometimes because of the my preference on goal scoring and different things like that. So I try to make sure that it throws off a little bit. We go to the power rankings and a few changes in the power rankings this week in my what have you done for me lately last 5 rounds of the season is how I kind of do my power rankings. At 5, the Geelong Cats. At 4, the Port Adelaide Power. At 3, the Western Bulldogs. At 2, the GWS Giants. And at 1, the longest win streak in the AFL, the Brisbane Lions. Round out the end of the power rankings. And we get to my favorite part of the podcast. Sometimes it can make me chuckle, it can make me laugh, and sometimes it can give me headaches, and that is tipping. I know we're a little bit ways away from the next round starting. Trust me, I want to get to it as soon as possible to erase the memory, but I'm not sure if I want to jump right into it. As Friday night footy, I get the luxury of getting up at 4:40 in the morning to see Sydney host the Collingwood Magpies at the SCG. Your tip, sir. Collingwood, Sydney. Who do you like?
I think this is the game where Sydney turns it around. Collingwood lost to Goey. Sydney's back home, reeling off of that loss, reeling after the last 5 weeks. I think Longmire's going to come in there, just guys, what are we doing? This isn't us, and it's not them. It's not them, and it's just gonna. I, I think I think it's going to be a thumping. I think Sydney will do to Collingwood like Port did to Sydney. That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I hope so. I really, really hope
Going
you're right.
away,
I
yeah.
really hope you're right.
To
I
go is a
really,
huge loss. Huge loss.
yeah, yeah. I really, really hope you're right on that one. Unfortunately, I'm gonna tip. I don't like doing this. I'm gonna tip against them only because this is one of those situations where this scares me. This is a Collingwood team playing well on the road. Sydney again still haven't really found their feet that much. I'm gonna tip Collingwood in this one again, trying the reverse psychology, hopefully hoping it works. Last week it didn't. Last week it worked in the wrong way, unfortunately, but we'll have to see on that one. We jump to it. The first round of Saturday afternoon footy sees a cracker at the Gabba as the Brisbane Lions host the GWS Giants, the top two teams in my power rankings, Longhorns. I'm going to tip the Lions in this one. They're at home, they're playing really well. And the Giants on the road at the Gabba, never an easy place to play. I'm going to tip the Lions, but this should be a cracking game on Saturday afternoon. And for you and I, sir, a Saturday night, an early Friday night game. Fantastic.
I'm with you. Brisbane Lions at home, easiest money you've ever made. If you're a tipping man, this is the game. Like, yeah, no disrespect to GWS, great team, great talent. It, Nobody walks into the GABA and wins, and it's Brisbane's game. It's Brisbane's game.
Yep. I am 100% with you on that one. We jump to the next one, an interesting one at Blundstone Arena down in Hobart as North Melbourne hosts the West Coast Eagles. The Eagles flying way over to the eastern part of the country. Fascinating one on this one. Who do you like, North, West Coast?
You're gonna take the home team, and that's basically where it's at. I feel North is just again they're kind of emerging out of their rebuild, and West Coast is still kind of in it, but West Coast I think probably has the best rookie in the comp. So I mean that and he's a rookie. He's a generational talent. I feel so. I think it could be close, but honestly, I'm taking North here. Just home field advantage, and it's a real home field advantage. That's all the way across the country. So yeah, North for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna tip North on this one too. Blundstone Arena down in Tassie. They play Tassie very, very well. I like North in this one. Sometimes you get a letdown after the big win for the caretaker coach. So I'm gonna tip North on this one. Another fun one, way out in Optus Stadium, just after that one, sees the Fremantle Dockers welcome the Geelong Cats. Head versus heart tip on this one, sir. I'm gonna tip the Dockers in this one only because they play really well at home. But the Cats make for a quite a difficult matchup on this one. Be fascinating to see how Fremantle bounces back after a tough loss to Fremantle to Essendon. Your thoughts on this one?
I think kind of similar to the Sydney situation. I feel they're humbled, losing a game that they should have won. They're in danger of losing the top four, and it means much more to Frio. In fact, Frio really needs those home games. Like really, really needs those home games. If Frio had won, I think Geelong could have come in and maybe stole one, but just going across the country and Frio losing in the manner that they did, like a heartbreaker at a game they should have won. I got to take Frio here. But I mean, I'll be tuning in. The Cats can beat anybody any given week, so
Yeah,
it should be a good one.
definitely. They are not out of it for sure. All right. Essendon Bombers at Marvel Stadium host the Gold Coast Suns. I mean, for me, it's a simple equation. Gold Coast on the road, tip the other team. Essendon for me.
Exact same math. Exact. Brisbane, Brisbane Lions never lose at the Gabba. Gold Coast never win away.
Yeah, pretty much. So that was an easy tip on that one. Playing at the same time in a different venue in Victoria at the MCG sees Melbourne host the Red Hot Power coming off that stomping of the Swans. Will we see a letdown by the Power and the D's take a scalp, or will Port continue their red hot ways? Who do you like in this one?
So talent for talent, I go Port, but boy, have they been so inconsistent the last 6 weeks, and they're coming into the heart of Victoria. I think I'm going to tip Port, but I'm not. I wouldn't bet. I would not bet this game. I it's too like Melbourne could be finding form, could be finding momentum. They need the win if they want to make something of the season. Throw it up in the air, but I'm taking Port, but barely, and I wouldn't tip this.
Yeah, this is a tough one on this one. I'm going to tip Port on this one just because I think Port is it had a little bit better form. The MCG sometimes can be quite the house of horrors for this Port team, but right now the house of horrors for me is the other locker room with the Melbourne Demons. They just cannot find their form the way they should. Port win this one, but I think this is a good one. I think Melbourne puts a little bit of a scare into Port in this one. A Saturday night game for us. Sunday afternoon footy sees another classic at the MCG as Carlton host the young upstart Hawthorn Hawks in this one. Who do you like? This is a fun one for me. I think this could be game of round.
I actually agree with you. I think Hawthorne know that I feel that Hawthorne lost it. Not so much that GWS won this week, and I think Hawthorne is going to come out swinging as that they have that they're the more desperate team. They're playing with house money too. No one expected Hawthorne to go on this run this year. They're like a season or two, maybe even 2 seasons ahead of schedule in my book. 100% on Hawthorne. I'd tip Hawthorne for this, but Carlton can always find the form and just emerge. Maybe the two towers finally show up. Who knows?
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see how it goes in this one. I have the Hawthorn Hawks in this one too. There's something about the way the Hawks are playing. I think they play
That
the G really, really well. Carlton, that's a gutting loss to lose to Collingwood, and now all the pressure is back on Carlton. You're just barely in the finals right now. You can't afford another loss. And could the pressure be doing the opposite of what it did last year, making Carlton play better? This is gonna be a classic game. I like the Hawks in this one. Carlton are up to their eyeballs in this one, but I like the Hawks. That should be an interesting one. A game that for many people might put them to sleep as we see the 18th seed Richmond Tigers host the St. Kilda Saints at Marvel Stadium. I don't want to tip this one, if I'm being honest, because Richmond is rubbish and St. Kilda is one of the most boring teams in the entire competition. But if you force me and twist my arm enough times, I'm going to tip the Saints in this one, but I'm not that confident. The only reason I'm confident that St. Kilda should win this one is because they're playing Richmond. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's just a pride game. And honestly, it's a pride game for both sides, but I feel like Richmond's just in a place in this season where I don't know. St. If you were talking the beginning of the year, St. Kilda, you were like, well, they could make the eight, and now they're so far out. They're so far away from it. I feel it's just a pride thing for them to win, and Richmond's still pretty banged up. So I'm tipping St. Kilda, but it's not a game I'm probably going to spend much time on or lose any sleep over at all. They just both clubs need to find form, figure some things out in the off season, and this is just at this point in the season, this is just a lunch pail game for both sides. Just got to show up and do your job and get some good film for going into the off season.
Yep, I'm 100% with you on that one. So, should be quite the interesting one with that. And last but not least, what I think could potentially be a giant trap game as the Adelaide Crows host the Western Bulldogs at the Adelaide Oval as the last game of the round. This screams trap game for me. Crows not playing well, Doggies playing really well, but on the road and a Crows team coming off quite a nice performance at GMHBA Stadium, coming back home where they play even better. Trap game here. I think the Doggies win this by my tip, but will not shock me if the Crows pull the upset.
Yeah, I'm with you. It also they could pull the upset, but it's also one of those things. It's where's your form? Like, no, Adelaide had larger expectations, I think, coming into the season than where they are right now. And I feel this is one of those things where they could win by an inch, they could lose by a mile. Like, what an emotional way to lose this round to Geelong, where you think you have them, you absolutely think you have them, and then yeah, so I could see this going either way, honestly. And the Bulldogs the same way. Just they found form, so they could just totally steamroll over them. And this could also just be a trap game. You have to travel. You're out of your routine. You're out of your regiment. Easy game to lose your form and think it's going to be handed to you as your season goes. And Adelaide's gonna could pipe up. We're getting paid too, guys. They're writing our checks every week for this stuff. Could go either way. Very interesting game, but I'm tipping the Bulldogs just on the talent.
Yeah, should be quite the interesting one on that one. And that is it, sir. That is all 9 games tipped. We have gone through all of it. A fun chat. You and I could talk for hours and hours about footy. I know it's been especially fantastic, sir. Um, it's always great having you on. And again, you and I talk without this. We don't even need the mics. We'll just sit there and talk footy. So it's always great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Yeah, really appreciate your time, Donnie. Thanks for having me on. I do think it makes it easier to talk footy when both of our teams are in top eight form and arguably top four form. Makes it for a much easier season all the way around. Congratulations to your Bloods. Let's crossing my fingers for the Cats. And good talking, and I hope there's much more to come in the future.
Well, I know the fun part is that we can sit here and chat because tomorrow we have practice, and I know I want to do this at the end of the podcast. Is that with my co-coach here is I want to use this time to send out a congratulations to 2 of the guys who we have the pleasure of sitting in chat of coaching this particular season. Both Jacob Grosh and Josh Curtis are find themselves in Toronto as we speak. Um, they are halfway through the initial rounds of the Transatlantic Cup where they are representing Team USA with the US Revolution, playing several teams from Europe and a couple of teams from North America. So I just want to take this time to congratulate both of them. They've been fantastic. We've had the pleasure of watching both the first 2 games of it. Wish them nothing but the best the rest of this tournament and then safe travels home. But I just wanted to take this opportunity since I had a fellow Roosters coach here to give them a little bit of love on the podcast. I haven't really got any of the other Roosters on the podcast. That is something that if any of you fans that are on here, if you guys want me to talk with any of the players that I've had the luxury of coaching or being around, just let me know. I'd love to have him on the podcast, but we'll just have to see how it goes. But that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposal. Again, keep an eye out. More coverage coming up. We're getting closer and closer to finals in the AFL and also closer to finals in the Waffle, Sandful, and VFL. And you know, we are going to be talking about that very, very soon. So that'll do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposal. We'll be back in your ears very, very soon.